Hi everyone, it's Alyssa, and now is the time to go over the top 10 worst movies of 2017. Now, full disclosure, I haven't seen every single movie that came out in 2017. I didn't see the Emoji Movie, I didn't see Flatliners, I didn't see the Mummy, so there were definitely a handful of films that were just pan. I could not bring myself to watch the Emoji Movie. I wanted to, just so I could put it on the list, but I physically couldn't do it. So I haven't seen everything, but this is a list of all of the movies that I have seen from the year. I also don't always try to purposefully watch bad movies. I maybe have watched more bad movies lately because of this channel, which is a good thing because it gives me kind of a broad idea of what's going on out there. But I don't purposefully go into a movie knowing this is going to be a bad movie. So with that said, I'm excited to hear what you guys think are the worst movies of the year as well. So coming in at number 10, I Do Until I Don't. And this movie is written, directed, and stars Lake Bell, who, this pains me to say this, she is one of my favorite actresses. She's such a great writer. I think she's so funny, but this movie just fell flat on every single level. So it's about marriage, and there's 3 different couples at 3 different ages and stages of marriage or love, and the story is just so cockamamie, and the amount of moments where they just happen to meet each other, and it's just so absurdly written, and it pains me to say that, but this was just a bizarre romantic comedy that tried to be very vulgar in the beginning, but then turned into a very traditional storyline, giving a very traditional message about love. So the tone just didn't ring consistent throughout the whole film. So coming in at number 9 is What Happened to Monday, and that stars Noomi Rapace and Noomi Rapace and Noomi Rapace. So she plays 7 different characters. Willem Dafoe also plays her father. This was a movie that was on Netflix. I thought the premise sounded awesome. So it takes place in this dystopian future where people are only allowed to have 1 child. If they have more than 1 child, that child will be frozen and put away and won't be able to exist until after their family has died. Now, Noomi Rapace's character is one of seven siblings, and they have successfully lived a life where each person gets to go out on a different day. So, one character is Monday, one is Tuesday, and it sounded like such an interesting premise, but it just falls into this action movie that is so incredibly plot driven, and it doesn't make any real, genuine commentary about overpopulation and the potential with this movie. It was there, but the execution was just so incredibly disappointing. So coming in at number 8 is Dark Tower, another one that I really wanted to be good, and this starred Idris Elba, who I loved so much, and Matthew McConaughey, and it comes from the Stephen King series of novels, and this story just felt like a mess. It also felt like a movie that should have been at least 2 movies. It was way too plot driven. It didn't develop the characters enough. The little boy, I know I said this in the review, but I'll say it again. He was just a really bad actor, I thought. I didn't like him in the movie at all. And Matthew McConaughey, who should be having so much fun playing this villain, he just didn't look like he was having a ton of fun. So it was just really disappointing. The only good thing about the movie was Idris Elba. So coming in at number 7 is Baywatch, and this is one of a few comedies that I thought just were so awful this year. In general, I thought this was a pretty bad year for comedies, for straight up comedies, not comedies that are meaningful with some comedy in it, but like a straight up comedy. This was not a good year. There wasn't like a 21 Jump Street or any movie that was just genuinely funny, but this one, it was just so vulgar in a very immature way. Zac Efron was just so unlikable in this movie, which, in general, I usually like him, and so seeing him just as such a mean, horrible character who I felt absolutely nothing for was kind of disappointing. And the story was non-existent, and it goes into this kind of cop movie but they're lifeguards. So nothing about it made any kind of sense. But an even worse comedy coming in at number 6 was Snatched. So that starred Amy Schumer and Goldie Hawn, and this felt like a movie that, was written straight out of the 80s. It was kind of borderline offensive and racist at times, I thought, and the other jokes just fell so flat and were really obvious, and Goldie Hawn didn't have any sense of fun or happiness. She was just very straight-laced and anxiety-ridden, and the exact opposite way that you want to see Goldie Hawn in a movie. So everything about it was just awful. From beginning to end, I thought this was one of the least funny comedies of the year, for sure. So coming in at number 5 is The Snowman, and that stars Michael Fassbender, and that just kills me because he is one of my very favorite actors, and I had read the book and was so excited for the movie, and then I saw how bad the reviews were, but I still went in and I had an open mind, and it was dark, but not in a good way. It was very slow, but not in a good way. It wasn't well paced. It wasn't like a David Fincher slow and dark. It was just boring. It was a boring movie. And Michael Fassbender's character is supposed to have, a bit of charisma, and, he was just really sad and dark, and the storyline seemed absurd, but it didn't seem absurd in the book. So there was definitely something that was lost in translation that did not work at all with this film. Coming in at number 4, another book that I read, The Circle, that stars Emma Watson and Tom Hanks, and this was just so disappointing to me. And this was a book that I really loved the book, was very excited for the film, but it was just so obvious in its representation of a Google type company that is evil and trying to be invasive and get into your personal life to gather that information, but they seemingly are doing it for a good cause. It's supposed to be a bit of a thriller, but there was nothing thrilling about it. Emma Watson looked really uncomfortable in the movie. She was not natural at all. The character wasn't supposed to have so much anxiety, but I felt like the main character was just so anxiety ridden. The love story, there was no chemistry in that aspect, and they changed the ending in a certain way that just disregarded the whole purpose of the novel. It was a mess. This movie, I hated it. And then coming in at number 3, The Book of Henry. And this was so disappointing because it started off in a way that actually was a good movie, and I was enjoying myself until about halfway through when everything changes. So this stars Justin Lieber and Naomi Watts. I won't say what happens in the middle. I did say in my review what happens in the middle because I was so angry when I saw it, but it's just really absurd. And what Naomi Watts has to do in it is just absurd. No adult mother would do what she did, and it was just a disaster. And to see, the director of Jurassic World go to something like this, and now he's out of Star Wars, this could be the movie why, because this could be the reason why, because this movie is such a disaster, but not as bad as the first 2 movies that I chose. So coming in at number 2 is 50 Shades Darker. This movie, sometimes I'll just say it, there are movies that as a girl I feel like I'm supposed to watch this movie, like a Rough Night or 50 Shades Darker. I feel like I'm supposed to watch it, and I hate myself for having watched that movie. It was worse than the first one, if that was possible. I mean, it's not even good to make fun of while you're watching it. It's just very uncomfortable dialogue. The actors don't look comfortable at all. They have zero chemistry. And the plot is beyond absurd. It was actually painful to watch. And Kim Basinger, there's even a scene where Dakota Johnson throws wine or something in her face, and you're like, oh my god, is this really happening? But I will say, I watched the movie on HBO. It was on HBO. I didn't pay for it really, except for paying for HBO. So I feel good about that, at least. And coming in at number 1, if you saw my review, I think you know what it is, Transformers: The Last Knight. This is every single thing that is wrong with Hollywood today. I hated every moment, every shot, every character. I couldn't find one redeeming part of this film. I hated it on every level. The action is difficult to watch. It's a little bit confusing. You don't always know what you're looking at. The characters are so stereotypical. The dialogue is so offensive. My review that I did for it actually pulled some of the really offensive dialogue just so that you guys wouldn't have to watch it, but you could know what the dialogue actually was. And just knowing that Mark Wahlberg was the highest paid actor of the year, and this is part of the reason why. I never used to have a problem with Mark Wahlberg, but now I kind of do, because you're making these choices and you've taken away any kind of artistic credibility. And Anthony Hopkins, I know you want to get paid, but really, did you have to be in this movie? Of all of the movies, did you have to be in this movie? It's just atrocious, and it steals things from British literature and just completely bastardizes it. So that offends me more. That offends me more than anything, because British literature is my favorite. So that's my list for the top 10 worst movies of 2017. I would love to hear what you guys think. Which ones am I missing? Like I said, I haven't seen everything, so I guess you would just be telling me which movies to avoid, because at this point I'm not going to watch them. So I did want to add one more thing. I was really struggling whether I should put it on the list or not, because it came out in 2016. I didn't see it until 2017, and it came out later in the year, which was Assassin's Creed. I just thought that movie was horrible, and I was so excited to see it. And once again, Michael Fassbender, one of my favorite actors, so just seeing him in all of these terrible movies, it's been really off-putting. So if anyone agrees with that, I'd love to know. So thank you guys so much for watching, and remember, it is always in fashion to stay at home, get dressed up, and make it a cinema chic night. Bye everyone.